Hello, trainers, listeners, practitioners. Just kidding. Welcome to another episode of the Trainers Digest. We have a special guest here today, Katia Ames. Say hello, Katia.
Hello.
Yes, Katia is a trainer based out of Eugene, Oregon. And I actually have known Katia for a while. So fun fact, she actually trained me before I, got interested in the fitness industry as something I wanted to pursue career-wise. And so this is a great opportunity for me because I have Katia who trained me, in fitness, and then, Nate helped train me as a trainer. And so, I have my mentors here with me today to bless you all with knowledge and with experience. And so,
basically, Katia is as OG as it gets, right here.
Yes, in the most way possible.
Yep, the most OG of the OGs. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna have Katia on today. We're gonna ask her a few questions. We're gonna talk a little bit about the experience she has within the training industry, and then just to kind of give you guys, a little bit of I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but just give you guys a little bit more variety, because you've heard Nate and I talk, a lot about our experience and the things that we've done as trainers. Katia, like Nate said, Katia's the OG, right? She's got a lot more experience under her belt than either of us. And so there are going to be things we're going to learn today as well, along with you guys. Not to put any pressure on you, Katia, but you better bring the heat.
There's no other way. So
yeah, this is the way. That's all there is to it. But just kind of start off, how's everybody's week been, first off?
I was like, if I'm going first, it's been pretty interesting. Actually, all day, I've been putting together a bullet smoker. I'm making my first foray into smoking. And I have some ribeyes, and I'm like, actually, it's really funny. Before Joe calls me, and he's like, hey, is everything all ready? And I was like, I'm in the middle of dumping a bunch of charcoal into the base of this bullet smoker and trying to get it lit. And I'm like, you know what? I don't have enough time for this. I'm just going to go ahead and hop on the podcast real quick and then get the rest of it done.
So just a heads up for everybody. Nate's going to be starting a separate podcast on bullet smoking or smoking on, I don't even know what, that's probably sounded completely wrong, but
I'm just thinking
smoking meat.
Someone has a gun and they're just
yeah, smoking someone out.
Got a stake outside of the chamber or something like that. Anyways. But yeah, no, it's been really interesting. I picked up a bunch of stuff, and I've gotten pretty good at grilling, not to toot my own horn, but I gotten really good at grilling out of cast iron pans and doing reverse sears and all that kind of stuff. And so now I'm starting to kind of experiment a little bit with a little smoker, and so we're gonna see how it turns out. It's probably gonna suck at the very first time, but after that we're gonna mess with it a little bit.
Nate, at some point I'm gonna come visit you, and I need you to be, proficient in this smoking thing so that I can test some of this meat out.
Oh yeah, I got you, man.
Okay, can you do that for me?
I sure can.
Well, thank you. All right. Well, my week has been, pretty mellow. Just working right now, so nothing new to report on my end for that. No stories to tell right now. Nothing super interesting. So we'll go ahead and we'll get right into the meat of what we want to talk about. I'm actually real quick. I'm going to set a timer just so that we don't, because I know people have had, issues with us going too long in the past. So I don't want that to be, an issue moving forward. So Nate, if you want to go ahead and, do you have the notes pulled up by chance?
I sure do. I have
Excellent.
them
if
right
you want to go ahead and start us off with getting to know our special guest a little bit.
Yeah, so to kind of get rolling, we wanted to ask you, Katia, a couple questions just to kind of get to know you. I mean, this is actually also more for me too, because I mean, Joe knows you pretty well. I mean, honestly, like he was talking a little bit about like evoc training and like all these other things, and I was like, I don't even know what he's talking about. So I'm curious to know. Well, first of all, tell us who we're talking to. What is your story? Who are you? How do you get into training? The whole 9 yards.
The whole thing, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, like Joe said, I'm from Eugene area is where I started training. But I actually am now located out in Junction City, which is like a little town outside of Eugene, if you guys aren't from around here. And it's actually where I grew up. So I've kind of come full circle back to my roots. But I started out training years ago. I don't know if I want to admit how long I've been.
Too many years.
Like,
Our minds can't conceive the amount of years. Katia's
she's
actually
22 and
I don't know if it's been
she just got
that
into
long.
it, but she has the years of experience.
She's actually been around since the beginning of time.
I look pretty good for that.
Yeah, for being around that long, yeah. That's what exercise will do to you folks.
And if that's not a reason to get into it, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I actually like my like startup story, or my origin story, if you will, is actually kind of interesting because it was kind of an accident, me getting into the fitness world. I actually kind of didn't want anything to do with it. So I don't know, Joe, if you even know this story, but I'll try to make it short and sweet. I got a membership in Eugene at International Fitness, which doesn't really exist anymore. So if that tells you how old I am. But I got a membership and I started going to group exercise classes, as a way of kind of like, I used to be like kind of an addict runner. And so I was like, I need to try something different, something out of the box, and maybe do something with other people instead of just being out on my own, running around town. So I started doing group X classes, and I went into a class. It was a PIO class, which is a format that I still teach. And the instructor came up to me afterwards and was like, "Hey, I just wanted to introduce myself. I assume you're the new employee." And I was like, "No, I'm really not." And she was like, "Oh, huh, I definitely thought you were the new instructor." So I was like, funny, but whatever, move on. The next day I went to a different class with a different instructor, and the same thing happened to me, where she came up and was like, "Hey, are you the new instructor?" And I was like, no, I'm really not. Different format, different teacher, different everything. And then day 3 in a row, I'm not making this up, the same thing happened. So the third time it happened was actually in a completely different format again. And I was like, all right, so what is the process of like becoming group X instructor? Because obviously, like, this might be my like this
You're
might
born
be a
for it or something.
like
Yeah,
I should at least ask, like let's find out. So she got me connected with, at the time, the person who was doing master trainer certifications in the area for PIO. And since that was the one that I had kind of taken to and liked the most, I contacted her about getting certified, and actually ended up doing it like within a few weeks, I think, of contacting her. I got certified to teach PIO. And then it just kind of snowballed. And I started teaching a lot of group X classes, yoga, Tabata, strength formats, got certified in P90X. And then a few years later, we started doing a small group training program called Tribe. And I was selected as one of the group X instructors to become a trainer for that, because it's kind of personal training meets group X. And they were trying to take employees from both sides of it to kind of bridge that gap and create more community within the gym. So I got trained in that, and through that, became friends with a personal trainer. The two of us really connected over, like interests and personality stuff, and started talking about Spartan races. Decided to sign up and do one. And again, snowball effect. People started asking us like, hey, can we train with you? Or are you guys putting out programming for this? Like, we want to do the Spartan races too. And we started really noticing that there's a real market for this, and that there's a lot of benefit to training with the knowledge of a personal trainer and a, you know, large group exercise kind of feel in a small group training kind of atmosphere. And the Spartan race as a whole can transfer into so many other things, that there could really be a market for this and a need for this in our community. And so that's how I kind of became a coach, is we just kind of started putting out feelers. Who wants functional fitness in a small group atmosphere, and who wants to be on board with this Spartan stuff? And fast forward to now, I own a gym. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Awesome.
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of the things you've said are a lot of trainers' dreams, especially that last little bit. You're now a gym owner. You know, a lot of trainers go out through, you know, their training experience dreaming of one day getting to that point where they're, you know, co-owning or owning their gym, or, you know, running things. They had a vision and they're running things the way they saw that vision. And so that's awesome that you're able to accomplish that. And so, yeah, there were some things that throughout your story, we just kind of want to delve a little deeper into, you know, some of those specific things that have to do with, you know, the yoga, tribe fitness, what specifically you do within EVOC. And so I want to start, I would like to start at yoga, if this is okay, Nate.
By all means.
You know, you mentioned yoga, and I did yoga with you. I did your yoga class. That was actually my first, what's the word, where you're exposed. I was when I was first exposed to yoga. And I will say, maybe this was just your yoga classes, but it was a lot tougher than I ever thought yoga would be. You know, when I thought of yoga, I always thought of, okay, you know, it's basically like a nap, more or less, but, you know, you get to stretch and you get to move a little. You know, I never anticipated all the isometric, you know, contractions that are going on when you're holding specific poses, and in very difficult positions as well.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, yoga definitely was a lot more than I bargained for, but I felt as though it was very much still beneficial. And so, how long do you still teach yoga at your gym?
Um, yes and no. So I do one yoga class a week. And we encourage everybody to kind of, to go to that class, or to take advantage of, we have some virtual yoga options as well. And so I do teach it, but not as much as I used to. But we talk a lot about and do a lot of yoga type postures in our classes that are outside of yoga. So like, that was a really random way to answer your question, but short answer being yes, and long answer being, we kind of took roots of yoga and have incorporated them into our programming as a whole at our gym. Because like you're saying, people have a misconception with yoga that it's going to be like easy, or like you're saying, kind of like a nap with some stretching involved. And I was actually one of those people. I animately wanted nothing to do with yoga. I really thought the only benefit to my body, like, you know, if I'm an OG trainer, this is like way OG before I was a trainer. I really thought, like, if I'm not like, you know, sweating and like racing as fast as I can, then I'm not doing anything for my body. So like, I might as well not even go there. And yoga was kind of forced on me, and in college. And I took a class that I actually really enjoyed, because it was a vinyasa. And there's tons and tons of avenues of yoga. We could talk about it for years. But I really fell in love with the more vinyasa style flows, because there is movement, but like you're saying too, there's also isometric holds that can really honestly be just as difficult as a high intensity workout. And the benefit to yoga became really clear to me in conjunction with all my other training. So we tried to kind of bridge that, or break down that wall, or bridge the gap of the misconception of yoga and like getting people through the door to take that yoga class. Like, I think you might have been suckered in by your brother.
Yes.
And that's how you got into that exposure. But talking about incorporating like mobility and that stagnant strength that you need in those internal muscles or in those connecting muscles that can transfer throughout other workouts that you do, sports that you do, you know, it can transfer to so much that we decided to just incorporate it into our programming. So we have a day a week where we just call it our mobility day. And a lot of yoga poses, yoga movements are incorporated in straight into our programming, as well as offering a true yoga class as well on those days. So that was my long answer to your question.
Yeah, so it sounds like you got like a pretty, I mean, I don't know, it sounds like this, you've kind of run the gauntlet in terms of training, I don't know, like training modalities, training like sensibilities, just kind of the thought process towards like approaching, you know, not only like mobility work, but strength work, power work, you know, athleticism, whatever it is. Like, it sounds like you kind of touched at least mostly on all bases. I'm kind of curious to know like how your training has kind of evolved over time, because I mean, obviously, like, you haven't been like a one-on-one, I'm gonna just coach this one person through this one thing the whole time, but like, you know, let's say I'm brand new and I'm coming into the gym, like, how has your training and like kind of your approach to things shifted as time has gone on, from like kind of like a day one to right now kind of like thought process?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, I've evolved in my knowledge and stuff like that. And I think that things that my views on things has changed, and my direction has changed a little bit as I've learned and as I've kind of changed my focus and found things that I really enjoy. And I think that within this kind of answer, I just want to touch on the fact that like something that's really helped me to get to where I am is like being aware of that evolution. So from day one to now, the ability to know that I'm going to be learning literally every moment of every day, and every group X class, and every personal training session, and every coaching session, I'm learning too, and I'm evolving. Because whenever you have a job where you connect with somebody else on such a personal level as we are connecting with as trainers, you're learning from them as much as they're learning from you, because there's that trust relationship. And in learning like what people's needs were, and common misconceptions has been a real huge reason why I've evolved into where I am now. Just learning what people are scared of, and what is that wall that keeps them out of the gym. How do you break it down to get them in? How do you make them feel comfortable once they're here? And so from day one, it was like, oh, I just really want to teach a group X class. And honestly,
Let's
I
just have
just
some
want to get
fun.
paid to work at a free gym membership.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, if I'm going to be here anyway. I've gone from that mindset of like 30-person class, let's just do this workout together, to, you know, how can I be in a class of 10 people and feel like I have one-on-one attention, but also I have peer support, and also the competitive, you know, the competitive side of fitness. How can we roll all that into one? And so I feel like I've very much evolved in a sense of getting my foot in the door and feeling like I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just here like working out with some people that I hope don't hate me, to how do I make these people feel like they're walking into a family, and how do I make you feel like this is the right choice you've made to walk in here, and this is the choice that you can make and will make for the rest of your life. Because whenever I started was, oh, gym rats, this is who we are, this is where we are, and then we leave. I've shifted to, this is a lifestyle, and how does what you do in the gym affect what you do once you leave the gym? And that has definitely been a part of my evolvement and the transition and the focus that I've shifted from, you know, just being a Group X instructor to becoming a trainer and a coach, in that way, and incorporating, like I was saying, you know, different things that create more of a well-rounded basis of functionality in the gym, if you are still a gym rat, because let's be honest, I am. But also if you're just somebody
Proudly.
who yeah, loud and proud. But also just, you know, creating a lifestyle for people who just want to be able to play with their kids, you know, or be more functional in everyday life. So that's been a big transition. And I think that the other thing that makes a big difference, and this is what I would say to any trainer who's starting out or in the middle ground of your, you know, your journey, is that regardless of where you're at in your journey, you got into this because you were passionate about something. And the most important thing is don't lose that passion, but recognize when the passion shifts and follow it. Because maybe you're not passionate about, you know, like I'm not as passionate about teaching yoga as I used to be. I don't have the time and I don't offer it as many times a week as I used to, but my passion has shifted a little bit, and I've taken that, you know, background with me and moved with that passion, versus trying to stay stuck like, no, this is just what I need to do to succeed. I need to just keep doing this. If your passion's lost, shift with your passion and carry those things with you, because that's going to keep you in the game and that's going to keep you moving forward and evolving. And I think that's been a huge thing for me, is just like giving yourself grace to let things go as you need to, and then grab onto those opportunities as they come and move forward.
I really like that. That's like super cool.
Yeah, that was an excellent answer, and I feel like there's a lot of things to take away, not only for new trainers, current trainers, but general population, you know, people who are interested in, you know, the industry and improving their lives through fitness. One thing that definitely stood out to me was, you know, right off the bat, you know, Katia said this is something that, you know, she's definitely had to gain more knowledge on with experience and over time. And, you know, that is so true for everybody, not only trainers, but, you know, every other person who, you know, has a passion for exercise and, you know, improving their health through exercise. There's a lot of things you're going to learn, and a lot of clarifications that are going to be made as far as and this is something that Nate touched on in our last episode, was kind of weeding out, you know, misconceptions with, you know, true facts and concepts. And so Katia mentioned that, you know, there are a lot of misconceptions within fitness. Like when she first started exercising, or when she was exercising regular, she was really into, if it's not killing you, it's not working, right? If you're not, you know, absolutely dying. But then, you know, over time, she learned that that wasn't always the case. You know, there's other ways to improve yourself without, you know, trying to kill you. And in a lot of ways, just, you know, trying to kill yourself through running every single day isn't really a, you know, a very beneficial form of exercising, you know. And so it's definitely important that, you know, we're able to realize that we have to just be patient with ourselves, take time to let ourselves to, you know, learn more. And, you know, we get that knowledge through trainers around us, you know, friends and family, the clients that we have, the people we're working with. And so I feel like that was a very, very good takeaway.
Yeah. And actually, I mean, this is one of the things I actually can't even remember if we talked about this or not in the first, you know, episode or two that we did, but that actually reminds me, I mean, a little bit about like kind of how it comes down a little bit to kind of setting your expectations for what you want out of yourself as a trainer, or just, you know, as, I mean, obviously a person in general, but specifically with your regards to training. It's like, I don't know, I think that passion thing that you're touching on, it, like, I think that makes a lot of sense. Just because I think that, you know, I think there is kind of a certain identity that sometimes we can kind of develop, either as people just working out in the gym or as trainers, where it's like, hey, I'm the strength coach. I pulled this much and I was this much when I weighed this much when I did it. So I'm the strong coach. I'm the one that trains for these kinds of things. Or, hey, I did this competition here. Like, I know more than most of the other trainers will about this kind of thing. And then you kind of paint yourself into a corner a little bit sometimes. So I think that makes a lot of sense. It's really cool. Like, I mean, kind of being able to shift with the passion that, because I'm not gonna lie, like, I mean, as someone where like, as someone who was like, I was the bodybuilding coach in our gym. Like, I was that guy for that stuff. And so anytime someone came into the gym and they're like, I want to get freaking jacked, like, they'd send them to me. And then so it kind of reinforced that a little bit. And so I was like, by the end of it, I was like, but like, I could notice, I was like, yeah, my, like, not necessarily my passion for bodybuilding is going away, but it was like, oh, like, I feel like I'm starting to get an interest into like other things, and I don't want to like only be the guy that's just like, let's just get freaking yoked and kind of go from there. And so
Right.
like it makes a lot of sense. Like, I don't know, I really like kind of that thought process. So one of the things actually I also kind of to follow up on that I wanted to ask is like, so throughout the course of kind of like as you've been kind of evolving um as a coach or like kind of a uh group fitness instructor and like all those kinds of things, like if as you've kind of evolved, what would you say are like the most common problems you've run into with the people you work with?
Um, hmm.
Or like the hardest ones to deal
So
with or whatever,
like client wise, like what
yeah,
kind
client
of,
wise, like what people come to you with, or like what makes it really hard for people to progress.
okay, okay. Um, well, I would say that, like I kind of touched on earlier, the number one problem with probably any trainer across the board is those misconception barriers that stop whoever it is from stepping through the door. Um, as a trainer, I don't even know. I've lost track of how many times I've heard, "Oh, I just need to get more in shape before I come to the gym." And you're like, that literally makes no sense. And so a big barrier is that like looming presence of the gym. Like, oh, the gym is where all the gym rats are and everyone knows what they're doing, and I'm overweight, or I don't know, or I don't have the knowledge, or I don't know how to use a machine, or whatever it is. And they don't want to step through that door, and they don't want to relinquish that safety blanket of, oh, I can just say that I'm not in shape enough to move forward. And that has its own branches of issues, because you're dealing with fear that someone has, and then they're coming and approaching a complete stranger, and they're trying to put trust in that stranger to calm those fears. And I think we all as trainers have felt that, on that first meeting or orientation with a new client, where you're like, okay, like, you're trusting me, and you're afraid, and how do I make you feel safer and better? And I think that the thing that I've learned, not only as a trainer, but also like just for myself when I first started, because I wasn't ever really in a position where I'd gone to the gym a bunch or been like a star athlete, that learning to have grace for yourself, and then teaching other people to have that, because everybody starts somewhere. And so I think that that biggest problem that I run into, honestly, like at the root of it, is people are people. Like, we're all human. And so you're coming into a vulnerable place, and as a person and just a human being, you're nervous and you're fearful, and you don't have any grace for yourself, because you're your own worst critic, and you've already walked in with a list of reasons why this isn't going to work. And so I would say that what I've learned most, just working with people like that, facing that problem again and again, and now as a gym owner facing that problem, and how do we get new clients at the gym, not only as personal clients but just new members facing that, is that the more you, as a representative of the fitness world, and as like a trainer or whatever you are, group X instructors, fill in the blank, like it or not, people look to you as the vision, or the figure of what they're eventually want to be,
Mhm.
and I think that that's partly just to pull back from that passion thing. That's why that's so important, because whether you believe it or not that you're, great at your job, or that, you should be that image, that's what people have already placed you as. And so learning to let your passion show to them is the best way to knock down that fear, because they're going to see that you actually just really care about what you do and really believe in it. And that's going to, it's going to right out of the gates help them to trust you, and to trust that whatever you're doing is working, because they're seeing it already work in you and who you are. So that's one of the biggest issues, and it doesn't really get easier. As far as like, it's still always an issue, but learning how to face it and break the issues down is definitely become easier with experience and with practice. And then I'd say that the other issue, which is kind of probably more what I've run, I don't know if you guys run into this, because I'm sure you have female clients, but the other thing I hear literally all the time is, I don't want to lift weights because I'm going to get bulky.
Oh no. Oh man.
And I don't know, that is, if I had $1 for every time I heard that, I swear. But it's real. Like, I get it. I ran. That's all I wanted to do because I was scared. So I get it. But also, and you guys don't probably have this problem, but like when people look at me and straight face be like, I just don't want to lift because I know I'm going to get bulky. And I just look at them like, what are you trying to say? Because I'm not bulky.
Yeah.
Like, but as a female trainer, they're like, you know what I mean? And I'm like, no, I don't know what you mean. But that's, again, like, the best way to address that is exactly that. Like, what do you mean? Because I'm not like that. So it just like Joe, you said Nate was touching on this before, that replacing like their misconception with a fact. And the fact is that's not accurate. Like, that's not actually what's going to happen. You don't touch a dumbbell and get jacked. Honestly, sometimes I wish that was the case, but it's not. But, I think that regardless of what the problem is, because those are just, a couple off the top of my head that I've probably run into more than anything else being in the industry, is like, there's always a fact, there's always something to break it down, and you just have to stand by it and continue to pursue knowledge that'll give you the ability to throw those facts out every time that something comes up, So, there's a lot of things I could probably talk about, and like things that are funny that come up, but those are probably
things you got to get off your chest,
Yeah.
We just want to talk about me for
Yeah, that's right. No, those are definitely, those are very good things. And, for you female clients, yes, in case that wasn't a fear of yours, it is extremely, extremely hard. Even for guys, it can be very difficult to get, bulky. For women, you would have to be producing an insane amount of testosterone. But again, we won't delve too much into that aspect of it. Maybe we might talk a little bit more in depth on a separate episode, but just to quiet some fears a little bit.
Yeah, I actually also, there's one thing I want to kind of add on there. So it's really interesting. I just remembered this actually. So I was working at my PT job, my physical therapy job, and I was working with this guy who, I think previous to his injury, he had been really getting into the weights a little bit, and then he kind of let himself slip, and then he got injured from something. It wasn't necessarily work related, and he said, he's like, yeah, I have this brother who is like, big bodybuilder dude, and he was like, yeah, he like told him, he was like, don't ever pay a trainer, or don't ever like use a trainer to like, for anything, because like, you're really just going to waste your money and stuff like that. And I was like, ooh, okay, let's break this down a little bit, because it's like, because anyone can learn how to teach a squat or whatever. And I was like, and we kind of talked back and forth a little bit about it, and I was just kind of like, it was very lighthearted. It wasn't like, oh man, well, what about this or something like that. It didn't turn into a political discussion, but it did get me thinking a little bit about like kind of like, how much like the role is and kind of the expectations you have prior to training, you think is going to be like, oh yeah, this is all going to be like lifting advice. Like I'm going to need to like, I need to have like all the lifts like perfectly down. I have to have like all this stuff down, and I like need to really, really, really know what I'm talking about, which admittedly you need to some degree. But like, I mean, I think, Katia could probably attest to this. I think Joe could attest to this, that like, you probably spend about 5% of your time thinking about your programming, how to coach things, um, like just specifically like addressing those kinds of like little things, maybe postural imbalances, little things like that. And you spend like 95% of the time on like the social aspect of it, the emotional aspect of like getting people into the gym, getting people over their fears, helping people like not worry about their food, helping people start worrying about their food, like all those things. I don't know. Would you say that's about right?
I
Yeah.
would. I would say to kind of add on to that, within training, you get to a point where a lot of this stuff just becomes kind of close to second nature, which is why Nate said it doesn't really take a whole lot of time to program. You get to a point where you're just kind of like, okay, this person wants to, accomplish XYZ. So I'm going to have them do, this. And so, it gets to a point where, you know, programming isn't necessarily like the hardest part of training. And then whenever you're training them and you see a postural issue, immediately you're just like, okay, well, let's fix that. And then that takes like a few seconds to fix. You just tell them, depending on how well they're able to, uh, understand what you're trying to explain and how well you can explain it. But those things don't really take a whole lot of time. The most time consuming part of training is, I would agree, the social aspect and, um, rapport and intrapersonal things, and trying to help them with, realizing that they are, making progress, and some of the why behind why you're making them do some stuff. But I don't know, Katia, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I really think that hearing you guys say stuff like that the programming isn't as time consuming as the interpersonal stuff, like that's the mark of a good trainer. Because if it's all about the programming and I wrote this down and this is what we're going to do today, and we need to go by the book, then your training sessions are on paper. But really your training session's about the person, and it's being here and being now, and maybe what you planned didn't work, and being able to shift gears and be like, okay, yeah, cool, like that's not going to work for you today. Or I've had people come in and I planned a leg day and they're like, I ran 13 miles yesterday, and I'm like, why would you do that? And it's like, we're shifting gears now. So there's so much put into programming in your head, I think, as you learn more and you build knowledge. Like you're saying, it becomes second nature. And like, at least for me, programming is just like going and going in my head all the time. And being able to be at that point is going to make it a lot easier to put 90% of it into your relationship. Because the person, honestly, like, they don't care if you give them a huge background on why you chose to do squats. Like, I can nerd out and tell you exactly why we're doing this and exactly what it does, and I think it's the coolest thing ever. But also, they don't care.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, maybe once in a while they do, but I would go on forever. And the reality is, they just want to know, that you're there for them and that they're doing something good for themselves. And they're not going to trust that as much if your training sessions on paper as they are if you're present with them and pouring, your care and your compassion into them, and that you believe in them and you think that what they're doing is great, and then they're going to think that what they're doing is great. And so I think you're exactly right. Like, programming is important. Obviously, that's why they're, coming to you in the first place, but that's getting them in the door. They know you have knowledge. they know your programming is going to be worthwhile. And as long as you trust in that and your ability to, roll with the punches kind of thing, being there for them and being present is definitely the most important part of those training sessions.
I like that. That's awesome. Joe, was there anything you wanted to add?
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, no, I agree. Those great things to add. Great material, great advice for people who are just starting out, and people who have been training for a while. There's a lot to learn from the things like Tia said. So, kind of to piggyback off that, as far as new trainers, do any trainers work under you, or are you kind of the main source of training at your gym?
I'm the main source. There's actually two of us, and we co-own EVOC and do all the training and teach all the classes and all that and do the programming. But my partner just started kind of a new journey and is pursuing some other dreams. So now it's me.
Oh, okay.
And the initial plan was to hire some new trainers, and we kind of got rolling on placing them into some baseline certifications and kind of like having them go through our classes as members to kind of get understanding of what our gym's all about and that kind of passion. Like I said, like I've said a lot, passion's important to me, and so obviously it's important to my company. And then 2020 hit, so things have kind of taken a little bit of a turn and a little bit of a pause there. But the intent is that eventually we'll have some trainers that aren't just me, but for the time being, I'm it.
Gotcha. Okay, the lone wolf. And the reason I ask that is because let's fast forward to when you do hire a trainer on. You've hired them, they went through the interview process, they walk into the door for their first day of training. What are some things you would cover first to help them with their first day of training?
Well, I think that the most important thing is I would always give the advice of like, be transparent, because everybody's nervous at first time, and there's something to be said about walking in with that confidence and that authoritative, like, I'm the trainer and I've got this. There's something to be said about that. There's also something to be said about like walking in, being transparent and saying like, hey, I'm new. I have the knowledge. I'm here to put it into practice. Here we go. Let's do this together. Like this is the first time. Because I think that it kind of takes that load off everyone's shoulders. Everyone in the room, including the trainer, or just the one client, depending on what situation you're in. It removes that like stress that's going to cause you to screw up, because you've taken the stage away. Like, all right, now we're here to do this together and embark on this together. And so that I think is what I would tell someone on their first day for sure, is like, just be transparent and have confidence, realize that there's no like messing up. Like, you just got to work through it and move through it with them. You guys are all on the same team. And then, to us at EVOC, our main, like the basis of who we are is to be a family. We're all here for doing the same thing for maybe different reasons, but we're showing up, and we have that really, that family feel. And so, in like the starting to train other coaches, we really put that into their training, is like, we wanted them to be members first, be a member, stand in their shoes, and figure out what you need to be as a trainer, to accommodate what it was like for you as a member. And so I guess by the time they get to their first day, they've kind of already been in that situation. But I think that that's another thing we kind of try to teach people, is like, you got to understand what it's like from the other side of it in order to be good at what you're doing from this side. Does that kind of answer your question, or do you want more details? Or
No, that was excellent, and I think there's a lot to be said in way of advice for new trainers, but also, people, gym owners. I feel like that's good advice for somebody who is considering hiring on trainers or is currently hiring on trainers. Things to keep in mind as far as, some important things to help that trainer to adjust and acclimate to this brand new industry. This, it is pretty scary being a new trainer, having walked into a big box gym and being like, not so confident in, the abilities you have just because you're so brand new.
Right.
But it does come over time, and, it is important to, right. And that transparency is important, for that new trainer to have, and being completely honest, coachable, those kind of things. And so we are just about out of time. There was a lot of stuff we still wanted to cover, but maybe, probably most likely in the future, we'll have Katia back and we'll be able to talk a little bit more about some of the things that we wanted to talk about. More specifically, maybe things like as far as Spartan races and obstacle course training is concerned. Nate, do you have anything else you want to talk about? Any last words?
I don't know. I'd just say it's been a pleasure having you on. I don't know. There's some cool insights we've been able to take away from this. And I was like, at least for the friends and family that are listening currently, I was like, most of them don't want to stomach a 3-hour video. I think we'd enjoy making that long of a video. But I don't think we would love it. We'd just be like, you know what? You guys can just sit down and enjoy it or not listen. But
this is for us. This is
I'm like, I already want to ask you about like what you think about different types of squat forms and different types of like let's jump into the nerdy stuff. Let's go.
But now we know who to have on board when we reach that topic. So.
We're just gonna like we're just gonna like work everyone up until the 3-hour mark, and then they're just gonna have to. By the time we get to the 3-hour mark, people won't even realize it's there.
Incrementally do like a few seconds to a few minutes every episode more. Just barely enough to where they don't really notice the difference.
I'm all about
until it's too late.
Well, cool.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Katia.
Thank you guys so much for having me on, and it's really cool to meet you, Nate, and also to see how far you've come, Joe. It's cool. So
appreciate that. I'm glad to hear that you think I've come far.
You've come a long way from being 10 minutes late to every training session.
Yeah. I won't say that didn't completely, get fixed as a trainer, but we're all working on something.
That is true.
He's always working. That's the important part, right? He's always improving. That much I can tell.
Yeah, excellent. All right, so yeah, we'll drop Katia's Instagram and all that cool stuff in the description. So if any of you are interested to know a little bit more about Katia, you can follow her Instagram, or I'll have Katia send me the link to. Do you guys have a website?
Yeah.
For your training. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we'll drop the link for that as well. Katia, if you ever want to consider sponsoring us, you can, we will be happy to let you do that.
Sponsor us for the 4 views that we have weekly or something.
Yeah.
That's 0. There you go.
Every view counts. That's
you got to start somewhere.
That's right. But all right. Thank you so much. And we will see you guys next week.
See you guys.
See ya.